How do you get your ideas or projects to move forward despite external barriers? And what can you do to remove these barriers that stop your team from implementing change? In this video, we're talking about how to remove the 3 types of external barriers. Now, before I drop the tools on you, where do you think you should start? That's right. Before tools, can you even define the barriers? Do they even really exist? Sometimes we think there's a barrier and we don't even try. And guess what? The barrier never existed. Barriers can be crossed, they can be broken, torn down, and more importantly, they can also be a mirage. The first step, whenever you want to begin any project, is to learn more by asking questions. Ask yourself, can you work within the barriers? And we know that constraints are helpful for creativity, so perhaps you should try to see what you can do within these constraints. Now, we have a great video for you on how to get leaders to adopt change. We also have a great video for you on how to get ideas heard, which you can see right here. But sometimes it's not your idea that's the issue. Sometimes a real barrier exists. Now, I've done keynotes to share tools on how to overcome internal barriers, such as when you're afraid to share or when you've been rejected and need to motivate yourself to share again. But in this video, we're going to give you the tools to make progress despite tangible barriers, psychological barriers, and physiological barriers. So let's jump in with number 1, tangible barriers. Tangible barriers are things like budget constraints, issues of distance or timing, or when the senior executive who used to greenlight all of your projects leaves the company. Some of the top approaches to tangible barriers that I use include project managing and problem-solving logistics. Have you answered their questions ahead of time? Did you do customer validation? Did you run an experiment? Do you have data to show it's feasible, viable, and desirable? The brain's main purpose is to budget energy for our survival. If the person listening can't tell if their own energy spend is going to be worth the reward, then you haven't given yourself a path to yes. Proof is always an antidote to barriers, but taking care of their issues is a necessity. Next, align expectations. Before I run facilitations or board retreats, I always align expectations. You can do things like run a vote to help multiple people see they're on the same page. But more specifically, do you know your boss's ambition? If not, find out. Does it align with your company goals? Do you know your company's goals? Make sure that what you're presenting is aligned with both. It's simple, but if you're not pointing in the same direction, it's going to be hard to make other things happen. Next, timing. Your stakeholders might really want to do what you're proposing, but they may not be allowed to take on any additional projects this year, or they may not have budget to do so. Make sure that you know the cycle. You may be up against additional projects, so if that's the case, try to be the first one to present, or try to know if you're the default choice, because in that instance, you want to be the last one to present. And next, engage multiple stakeholders. You have a supervisor that you need to respect, and you have colleagues who want to give you feedback and to participate. Innovation is a team sport, and people care about what they help to create. You should involve multiple stakeholders, not just the ones that you are expected to. Ask yourself, who should be in the room that isn't? Diverse perspectives are important for creativity and for problem solving and feedback. And when you engage multiple stakeholders, you find out who has the energy to work with you on it. When a leader advocates for the status quo, that's for them, not for the company, because living at the edge is a necessity in our age of change. And true leaders look out for ways to make progress, and they're going to be the ones that help evangelize your initiative or give you feedback that you need to know so that you know if you're on the right track or wrong track. And next, to address psychological and physiological barriers, understand this. We collaborate to make change happen. But before you can make change happen, you need to make yourself and those around you change ready. And what matters most is our inner condition. This is why psychology and physiology are so important, and it's really for 2 reasons. The first is that your inner condition affects you, your ability to make decisions, create, and connect with others. And the second is how your inner condition affects others, their feelings, their heartbeat, motivation, decision making, and more. Let's look at number 2, psychological barriers. Now, psychological barriers are things like precedent, threats, fears, and bias. We have over 180 cognitive biases that irrationally influence our decision making and get in the way of our leaders saying yes when they should and no when they shouldn't. And generally, you can help by considering how to overcome biases in the design of your adoption process by doing things like clarifying your intention and increasing awareness. But here are some of the top tactical approaches that I use. First, psychological safety. In Google's Project Aristotle research to determine what makes an effective team, researchers found that what really mattered was less about who was on the team and more about how the team worked together. And the most important factor was psychological safety. This is the represented belief that a team is safe to take risks without being seen as ignorant, incompetent, negative, or disruptive. Ah, Jack, but how do you foster this? I want you to remember SCARF. It stands for status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. And when these are threatened, you can kiss psychological safety goodbye. Instead, try to increase feelings of status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. There's more in the video here. Next, the law of diffusion of innovation. Don't go after everyone. Try to get the early adopters or the leaders with the most energy and influence on board first. Groups won't get on board with something until they see that the early adopters in the tribe like it and approve of it. This is the law of diffusion of innovation at work. And to create interest, use scarcity. Choose who you let in on it so that you build tension and momentum. Next, micro commitments. Seek micro commitments at every stage of your process and in all of your conversations, not just the one large yes at the end. Ask them if it feels right track or wrong track early in your discussion when you're asking for a presentation. And if you're granted a presentation, you be the one to invite them to the presentation so that there's another yes. Can you run an experiment to try a portion of it? Yes. Do they want to have a hand in the creation of the concept? Yes. Anywhere you can get or seek a micro commitment along the way will help you remove the barrier of the larger commitment at the end. And number 3, physiological barriers. Last but not least, physiologically, people synchronize heartbeats. That means that people sometimes are syncing with you and sometimes you are syncing with them. Just think about that for a second. When one of your colleagues has been stressed or nervous, has it made you stressed or nervous? Or was the opposite true? Did you calm them down? The state of our body determines more of what we do than thinking does. And here are some of the top tactical things that I do to remove physiological barriers. First, minimize stress. In times of stress, we revert to habitual ways of thinking and acting. So if the people that you are presenting to are stressed, it's likely you won't get an openness to new thinking. You can try to time your presentations so it's a less stressful time for them to receive your presentation. Things like a better time of year, a better time of day, which is likely early in the morning before other things in the day creep in. But you can also get the group laughing or ask the group to do something that will lessen their stress response as a kickoff to the meeting. Next, entrainment. As we discussed earlier, we sync with one another, and this is called entrainment. But we usually sync or entrain with the largest signal generator in the room. This may be the boss or the person with the most infectious energy. So try to include the most energetic senior leader that you have on board with you in the presentation. Also, remember, it's your job to read the room and present in a way that the group needs. If the group is stressed, then present in a calm and confident manner so that you don't trigger the stress response further. If the group is catatonic, then increase their arousal with your excitement and confidence. You're the facilitator. You can signal the breathing patterns. You can signal the places to look. You can signal the mood. And all the rest of the room will pick up on it. If you are stressed or anxious about being rejected, others will pick up on this, and it may influence their decisions instead of their decisions being based on the merits of your idea. Next, the visual system. We have over 11 million sensory receptors, approximately 10 million of which are dedicated to our sight. Our vision is the single biggest indicator of whether or not we should be more or less alert. Let me ask you a question. Do you dream in words? No, we dream with images. If you don't use visuals and evoke imagery in the sharing of your ideas, then you're self-imposing a barrier. Visualization is a shared language. Because of this, it helps us to clarify and put everyone on the same page. And it can help you increase attention and focus on your initiative. Next, foster dopamine. When we minimize threat, we minimize here and now neuromodulators and allow dopamine, the agent of change, the neuromodulator responsible for motivation, drive, and abstract thinking to kick on. And that's something really important for futures thinking. And we can do this by making our participants curious with new and intriguing insights. And if all else fails, if the people you are working with simply don't seem to be open to hearing what you have to say, ask multiple what-if questions. What if this? What if that? What ifs redirect to a possible future and the potential around you. These tools won't work every time, but what you are aiming for is to set the right conditions where you've removed the barriers so your idea is given full fairness and consideration. Remember, if you're sure you have barriers, see if you can work within them first. And if they need to be torn down or broken, try to determine what type of combination of barriers you have, whether it's tangible, psychological, or physiological, and then use some of the tools in this video to overcome them. You can do it. And do me a favor, y'all, go win the day. Sincerely, your #1 sidekick. Oh, and do me a favor, click the like and subscribe if you get something out of this. And for those of you who have never seen them before, our free guides are in the show notes below. See you in the next video.